Hi team, Richard Greer here, CP coach. We've got Jess next to me pushing the buttons. This is a bit of a special that we've got this week. How are you doing, Jess?
Yeah, good, thanks. How are you going?
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, really, really good. We've got Braden and Sally Currie that we're going to talk to today, specifically about that amazing World Champs performance that we had on the weekend, waking up early hours of the morning to sort of get updates and see how things are tracking. And when he was out the front leading the race, we're going to get an understanding about what Braden was happening for him, and then also Sally on the sidelines, how she was tracking things, and get a bit of an understanding about how Braden Currie and Sally, how those guys work as a team, and they've become so successful with that. So really looking forward to today, and hopefully you guys learn a few things out of what it's like to push the pace at the front, and when you've got a whole bunch of people catching you, but you can't look back, you've just got to go.
Absolutely. I'm excited.
Yeah, good stuff. Okay, well, let's get the show rolling, shall we, Jess? Actually, just before we start, a couple of admin things. This is our month of May, which is our climbing month, which is our Everest month. So how many vertical meters can you climb in the course of May? So can you get down up to 8,848 across the course of May? If you can't, or you think that might be a stretch, do it as a team. Can you pair up with a couple of others maybe and do that too? So really cool to see lots of climbing and things going on. I've had a whole bunch of people help drag me up some virtual vertical meters in the Zwift world in our group sessions, but yeah, really impressive with those honest vertical climbing meters with on foot, which are always the hardest because you don't get to freewheel on the way down. So keep that up and keep doing all your great things, especially as we get sort of into these winter months a little bit more as well.
Absolutely. It's great to see everyone's stats and updates coming through on social media as well, and all their different challenges. So yeah, keep it coming.
Can I quickly ask Jess how many vertical meters that you're on?
I will update you. I haven't put it together yet. Slow going on my end, but I'll get there.
At the end of the show, maybe we'll have a bit of a sort of update. That sounds good.
Yeah,
good. No, that's awesome. Perfect. Okay, well, let's roll forward with the show, shall we?
Yes. We'll just wait for Sally to come back in, and here she is.
Hi.
Sally, how you doing?
Good, thanks. How are you guys?
Yeah, good, thanks. Hey, so just a bit of an update where you're at. So you've the race earlier over the weekend, and then you've just landed in back in New Zealand in Wanaka last night.
Yep. Just got in last night, had a good sleep. So this is sort of day one reset. I'm always sort of surprised at how much there is to do after a race in many ways. So there's still quite a lot going on, but I think Braden's pretty good at just, resetting himself and taking the time. So that's probably me that's kind of tapping away and making calls and still going, but I'll get my rest soon.
Yeah, good. That must be pretty full on, because what do you think the time of the day is right at the moment? It's sort of evening time just about, is it, in your head?
It is about 5 hours ahead. It's not too bad. I actually adjust pretty well with time zones, so I'm a good sleeper. I had a good sleep. So no, I'm all good.
Good stuff. No, that's awesome. So let's jump back a little bit. What did it mean for you on the weekend, cheering Braden on and seeing him out there and ultimately seeing him across the finish line? What did that mean for you?
It's the journeys are so interesting. I do self-reflect a lot because I actually generally am quite in the moment with what's going on, and I need that self-reflection to truly acknowledge what's just been achieved. And having just a sense of belief in Braden I've always had, and it's never wavered in my entire time knowing him. I believed he could do that, but then when it was actually happening, it was still quite surreal. And then reflectively, when you truly reflect upon it, that Braden is able to compete with, Christian Blumenfeld, gold medal winner, one of the best endurance athletes in the world right now. I've seen him compete equally with guys like Javier Gomez, with, a similar caliber, and Jan Frodeno and other athletes that, to be honest, their whole existence in life has been triathlon.
Yeah.
And you will know, Rich, more than anyone, that Braden's whole existence has certainly not been triathlon.
Yeah, which, like, he's got a bit of mongrel, he's got a bit of, like, we can turn it on, and that's we saw that in terms of how he races. But I don't know, is that a positive that he's got so many other elements of his life going on as well, so that he's still into it at this stage?
I think, you know, and I did say that to him a week or two out. I said, in this particular race where there hasn't been a world champs in a couple of years, and you've got quite a new scene, like quite a lot of new athletes, I said, I think this is where you will perform at your best, because I think you'll be able to accept the stress and anxiety that a lot of these other athletes are feeling, and feeling unnerved and ungrounded. And to be honest, a lot of that comes from solidarity and grounding in life, feeling really happy with where you're at in life, and having a family that you know are behind you, having forged your way almost like financially to have a home, and have a platform from which to perform from, which we've fought really hard to achieve, but now is our time. And I felt instinctively that others would implode at this moment, and we saw that happen.
And
not necessarily on the race course, just with withdrawals even in the week.
And how many withdrawals of those top names? It was about 10 top names that are sort of household names that you could say that were withdrawn.
Yep, and that comes from expectation, you know, like pressure to do well when you actually don't have the depth of experience behind you. And just the environment, like in terms of, there was the altitude, it was the toughest course you were going to see. So those athletes that tend to perform in quite key events that have basically flat courses, time trial position, consistent power, run speeds on the clock, they're the athletes that aren't used to this type of variability. And Braden's obviously an athlete that copes very well with that type of variability. So I did feel like he had every opportunity to achieve what he did.
You mentioned before the race that he's a dark horse here, and you mentioned that, hey, he's got a good shot at this. Like, I mean, coming from New Zealand and knowing Braden, like, I didn't ever think he was even consider him being a dark horse. He was always in my top few. But in the world scene, like, what was the actual thought there?
So there's been a big shift in the triathlon scene. Part of it's to do with the creation of a union, the Professional Triathlon Union, that's come about in the last 2 years, sort of since COVID. And there's now like probably an accepted ranking system, a global ranking system to rank athletes. And that particular union is still financially motivated. It is owned by the athletes, but the guys at the head of it have a big vision for it, and we can't sort of argue. I'm just getting rid of Braden. He's trying to come in.
We're talking about him, not
exactly. I'm like, oh, wait, Braden. We can't argue that there's an element of brand development that they are going through, and what we're seeing is that they're promoting certain athletes.
Right.
And they're promoting them because it's gaining attention, it's gaining traction, it's growing their brand. Braden, having not had the opportunity to race globally for a couple of years now, even though he was ranked 6th last year, he dropped to 16th just previously. He's now back to 6th place. He doesn't have the notability of those other athletes, so almost irrelevant to performance in some ways, because there hasn't been an Ironman opportunity on the world stage. I even noticed Ironman were gravitating heavily to these key names as well. And in my mind, I just accepted it for what it was, because they, you know, that American Sam Long, for example, Ironman love Americans. And I personally was like, I don't think this guy's going to perform at all out here. But it was who they wanted to talk about in the race. Therefore, he became a dark horse.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Right. And the commentary, just switched that commentary off because it was just annoying, sort of thing, wasn't it?
I said to Braden, I didn't say it straight away, but he said, "How are you?" the day after the race. And I said, "I'm great. Like, what an amazing result." I said, but I was honestly deeply frustrated with the media coverage. at the event.
Mm-hmm.
But it's all part of it, you know. You've got to earn your right. You've got to create your name, and that is in essence of what we do at the same time as performance.
100%, and that's why you're busy at the moment, and that's why you're not going to sort of slacken off in the next few days, because you've got to make the most of these opportunities, and that's right where you are at the moment, aren't you?
That's pretty much it, Rich. Like, in order for this to have been a sustainable pathway and for our family, financially, and also to fund what it actually costs to do this sport well, you can't take your finger off the pulse. If you don't have the good partnerships, if you're not providing the highest level of media, coverage on almost everything Braden does, then all of a sudden your performance is actually inhibited because you can't fund it. And it's just a harsh reality. And it almost pains me when I see other athletes with that potential in New Zealand that don't have that opportunity yet. And I deeply hope they'll make it, because you know what they're capable of. Yes. But there's just so many sports that aren't funded at all. So everything is on our own backs.
That's right. And it's more expensive in New Zealand because we're so far away from the rest of the world, just to travel there and then to live there and to be able to actually perform there, all those sorts of things. So how do you go about that? You've got a bit of a team around you in terms of helping create some of that content off the back of that and a bit of a plan. How does that, can you break that down for us a little bit more?
Yeah. I mean, we've never been there was a time when we had to do everything ourselves, because there wasn't the ability to do it any other way. Yep. And now it's just being smart about where we need to fill gaps, where I need to fill gaps as well. So yeah, I do have an amazing marketing lady behind the scenes who. When it comes to events, like she's helping me basically execute media live when required. And obviously I work with my brother a lot. He does a lot of our content creation. We have photographers and things that we've worked with over many years that we contract at events as well. And then I guess like our media execution probably does come from me as a general overview, and probably instinctively, as in what just happened there and how do we tell that story the best we can, and knowing the sponsors and partners really well and reading what will work for their brands, anticipating that, and obviously working with them closely when we have the time available to deliver what we need to, because obviously Braden can't do everything. He can't be at the highest level and also be, spend 5 or 10 hours of his week creating content. That's not going to work. So just being clever about it, outsourcing if we need to, and doing the best we can to tell the story.
That's right. And being proactive, I guess, in that as well, as what you're saying, is that you're taking things to those sponsors and supporters, and then that makes their job easy, and then they can get off the back of that, isn't it?
Pretty much, like sponsorship's a topic you could write a book on in a way. Some sponsors will sponsor you because they like you and they just want to back you, and it's almost like giving money away. Like they don't actually expect anything in return. Others are quite strategic. They have strategic vision of what they want to achieve from you. Others sit right in the middle, and you want to renew every contract. Basically, you don't want to end a contract, and we're fortunate enough to have had long standing contracts, and just working with the sponsors as best we can, and feeling like they're part of our team as well. They're actually hugely integral, and I want them to know that, because we couldn't do it without them.
Yeah, no, that's so good. That's awesome. You almost didn't head to Utah. Is that correct?
You know what? I had a quick chat with a friend this morning, and I said, I cannot believe that I even fathomed not going. And, I think as the goal for the last few years, we don't write goals on paper, by the way. Like, these are sort of like informal chats Braden and I have about where we're going, and they're fleeting moments. They're not even like an organized meeting. But the goal is to build a team and not leave any stone unturned. And over the last few years, we've felt like they're not a team that's with us all the time, but for example, we've got a biomechanical like bike specialist who works for Cycling New Zealand, and he's worked a lot on Braden's position and crank length and, you know, cycling efficiencies. And we've got our mechanic in 𝗕𝗏𝗃 who's, you know, amazing. And we've got the guy who made Braden's bars. We've got 2 coaches. We've got Val, who's in 𝗕𝗏𝗃. We've got Ben, who's in Austria. We've done a little bit of consulting with nutrition. I probably end up taking a lot of that role, but we've sort of finessed that. We've got physio, Brett, and locally. Like, so you feel like you've created a high performance team. And, you know, in some ways I probably don't acknowledge my own role that often. And I'm his wife. Like, first and foremost, I'm his wife. And that's really important for us, that I'm not leading anything, like that everyone else is doing their jobs, and I'm there for emotional support. I'm there to laugh with them and have family time and not bring work into our family world. And in some ways, him going over and knowing his coach was going to turn up and feeling like we were as organized as we could be, I felt like he was going to work. And I felt like he was well covered and well supported, and basically negated my need to go, and just thought, you know, not in a bad way, but I'm redundant in this situation. He will have a great performance with or without me. And I sort of probably need to just acknowledge now that I needed to be there, and I'm really happy I was there, and it's part of what we do.
Yeah, and then you can, I mean, all the things that you're doing now, you can tell that story better. You got a better feel for things as well, haven't you? Of everything that went on, and he went in the background, all that sort of thing. Amazing.
Those insights are invaluable, and I need to know them. I have to say, I need to know them.
That's right, because like, you're not the team leader, but you in another sense you are. So you sort of flit around, and with everybody within that team will have their leadership roles from time to time. Val will be sort of leading, and then Braden will be leading the charge, and then you will be, and vice versa as it comes and goes.
That's sort of how it feels. It'd be hard you can't create a traditional, you know, company structure with the guy at the top, and it does move and morph, and that is probably the benefit of it, that people step up and down as required. And even Braden, when he needs to lead, he does. And then for me, exactly the same. I've over the years learned to recognize when I need to lead, and it's certainly not that often, but there are times when I know that putting it all together is my role.
Yeah, that's right. A couple of final questions. Did it take, like, was it like you mentioned that we don't have written stuff down? We sort of, this morphs in terms of where we're going and what we're doing. Did it take a bit of like, this is what we're doing, we should go and do this Worlds, or was it actually always on the cards?
You know, when it was announced, I saw a reluctance in Braden's, you know, body language of sort of like, you know, like, I don't really want to go do that race.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, in a very long story short, his first ever 70.3 was in St. George.
Okay.
Bella was probably 2 weeks old. He left for 5 weeks to race, and he had a really bad experience in that event. He kind of split his finger open and ended up, I don't know, 30th, and just was so off the pace it kind of wasn't funny. And then so you've got, that's your experience of that.
Yeah.
And so in my mind, I thought to myself, it's always the ones that Braden isn't that excited about, like, can often be the ones where Braden really performs. And I'm not sure why that paradox exists, but as we got closer, and I was always concerned with the position of Ironman New Zealand, that would have been 8 weeks out from St. George. And knowing Braden, how he recovers, and even from a mental motivational perspective, I felt like he would lower his expectation on what he could achieve in Utah off the back of Ironman New Zealand.
Yep.
And then, of course, Ironman New Zealand gets cancelled. It is the only goal, and it becomes pivotal, because if he doesn't do well there, his year's over. He has to chase a Kona qualification. So it becomes even more important. And watching, I guess, the belief grow in what he could do at this event is quite incredible. Like, if you go to what he was hoping to achieve 2-3 months ago, to what he hoped to achieve 2 weeks out, to even what he hoped to achieve when he lined up on the start line, it went from like mediocre to, oh yeah, maybe I could, top 5, to like, I'm going out to win. So that was pretty cool to see.
That's awesome. That's cool from your perspective, isn't it? Just to see that belief grow over time, and obviously getting, himself and the team sort of bringing that real peak to his performance and say, right, I'm good, I'm in good shape, things are going well, etc. That's fantastic. And on that, you put a message out prior to race day to say, if anyone wants a bit of an inside word, I'm going to create a messenger group, Facebook messenger group, to get some updates from the sort of the center of what's actually happening. That was fantastic. How good. Braden, hey guys, as he's eating his 2 bowls of cereal for breakfast or whatever was going on there. How did you find that? There was lots of fantastic chat going on.
Yeah, obviously, because he was in that front group for the large majority of the race, everyone at home was able to watch that race unfold. And that was fantastic. So my role came a little bit redundant within that. But I guess I wanted those, and with our content too, I always want to give the fans what they truly want, like a bit more of that insight into what's really going on. And that was kind of my goal for that group. I didn't expect to be adding, I don't know how many people ended up in that group, quite a lot. Every time I had to keep refreshing the feed and making sure I didn't miss anyone. I don't know how many people tuned in the end, but you kind of, I know myself, when you're watching a live feed, you're only getting what they're telling you. And so I know that for those really keen people to have more of the back end of what is going on the ground make it feel more real and make it feel more exciting. So
that's right.
Yeah. And also when you're updating Instagram or Facebook or something, you can only share so much. You don't want to like completely overload the channel. So it was fun to have something that I wasn't even checking. I was just making a video, send, like, it didn't have to be PC. I could kind of say whatever I wanted, and it could just flow. So that was actually quite liberating from a media point of view.
Yeah, how good. No, that's awesome. And great from coming back, there's reading all the comments and support and things that went with that.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. We do value our really keen supporters a lot, and it was pretty awesome to know how many people really tuned into that race. We underestimate how committed, some fans are, and we're really grateful to have them.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. No, you're doing a super job, and exciting. Lots on the cards to look forward to for the rest of the year as well.
Yeah, that's probably like large part of my task in the following week is how we stitch all that together in the best possible manner. And it's a big year. And I actually had a chat with my son. He's got a pupil-free day. And he's so, you ask him a question, you get an answer type character. And I was asking him about what we do in September. Braden wants us to go to Maui, but I feel like, again, it's work and we'll leave Braden to do his thing, doesn't need the distraction of all of us. And Tan was like, no, I think we should go, I think we should go for 2 weeks, and then we'll go to Kona, and you're not go, I don't want you to go and us not go. And he was just very definitive of what we're doing. So to be honest, I actually take that on board entirely. And my new plan is basically what Tan told me to do. So
No, that's great. But and he was putting lots of updates on that messenger group as well. I'm not sure what time of the day it was that was coming through, but it was not a lot of sleep going on from his perspective.
Yeah, he's a clever kid, and he knows the sport, he knows the athletes, he knows the paces.
Yeah.
And I think it probably, I haven't had that conversation with him. I imagine it was really hard for him not to be there.
Yeah.
But he also was invaluable, even just the information he was giving me. Although I knew once the run came, Braden would just run, that nothing I said to him could change the fate of the race. It was still it was still pretty cool to have him there, like feeding that info to me.
Yes. Great. Another valuable team in the Team Currie. Look out. We're coming through.
Everyone's definitely got a role in the team, that's for sure. Bella's role is just to make everyone laugh, I think.
Yeah, that's just as important. How good. Nice work. Fantastic, Sally. Thank you so much for your time. I really, really appreciate it. Is Braden lurking around in the background? Are you allowed to tell him to maybe come back?
I'll check him in. Okay, see you, Rich.
Okay. Cheers, Sally. Nicely done. How good is that? Some insights from the back end of what's been going on, and how Sally goes about trying to keep Braden going in the right direction. Here he goes. He's sitting down. For those people listening to this, I was just assessing that squat. How are the legs, Braden?
They've been better and they've been worse, I think. Yeah.
Okay.
They're all right. Yeah, it's a pretty punishing course in that way, with the descending later in the marathon, and I think that's definitely led to some pretty strong DOMs, but we're all right. Yeah.
It's not bad. It's good for the rest of us to hear that someone like yourself does actually get some DOMs as a result of just going deep in a race like that. That's we are human. It's good.
Wow. Yeah, I don't think the pain gets any less the fitter you get and the faster you go. It just you just tend to go faster.
Yeah, that's right. And that's part of your job, I guess, is actually learning to cope with that pain, isn't it? That's why you do your training.
Or learning to absorb or be able to go further, be able to tolerate those higher efforts, then that's a lot of the work.
Yeah, 100%. How are you feeling at the moment, reflecting on things?
Pretty good. Yeah. I think obviously we talked through it a lot with Sal and that, and there's moments in your mind where you're at the front of the world champs and you think, oh man, maybe I could have taken it if I'd just run a little bit better. But I think overall, in hindsight, I think we're really happy with the way I raced, and I was just I'm really happy to have been at the front of a world champs and competing with the best guys out there and pushing them right to their rivet. I think you got to, I guess, sit back and enjoy it. It may not have been exactly the finish that I wanted, but it was still an incredible race, and probably one of the best races of my career to date as a performance.
Nice. Racing from the front is great in theory, and that's what you've always done, just throwing it out there. But it's super tough to actually execute, to actually mentally hold on to that. Right, I'm just going to go and leave it out here and see what happens. How do you manage that mentally? Where's you halfway through that run, getting through that half marathon sort of stage?
Yeah, I think it's not normally something, other than in multi-sport career, because the way the coast to coast falls, that as you've been there plenty of times before, where I've been at the lead of the race and then I've just got to grit my teeth and hang on. Normally when I'm racing at this level in an Ironman World Championships, I am very much looking at a 12-minute deficit off the bike. And that mindset's very different to the one that I've been into this week. It's that you start going into the rhythm and you start kind of finding the gears and just working your way through the field if you can.
And that's positive, isn't it? Because you're passing people, tick, feel good about that, right? Let's go and get the next one. You're the hunter then. But you're the hunter this time.
Very much measure yourself as in how fast you're going and how much faster you need to go and how someone's looking like when you're running from behind. So yeah, it's very, very different. I think it's the first time that I've ever been in the situation where, yeah, especially at that level, that I have been at the front of the race and having to set that tempo and stuff. So yeah, I think I mean, some of it changed. Like, I definitely look back, I look at splits, and I thought about how I was running and what was going on. But I ran, for me, a relatively controlled run. I am very known for just sending it and waiting until I absolutely implode. And I controlled it, but I still kind of slowed down towards the end. And it wasn't my best run performance. Looking back, I got to that kind of 25K mark, and I did really go to a bit of a dark place. And quite often in my races, I don't have those moments in an Ironman. Like, I really did slow down, and not often that happens. So I guess, looking at the run, I was a little bit disappointed with the last half, but I guess I take it as it is.
And well done for having a crack and seeing what happened rather than playing it safe. That's the key one.
Well, yeah, exactly. It could have gone both ways. And maybe by the time Christian, I could have gone either way. I could have run that first half a little bit, like 2 minutes slower. And Christian could have been on me earlier on, or or there was that chance that he still had to run incredibly fast to catch me, and he was going to blow up just doing that. So I guess that's what I played my cards to. I played my cards to that if I run strong for this first 30K, and he has to run faster than I can run, there's a high probability that he is not going to make that finish line. I guess unlucky for me, he did. He kept on running.
And that's
I said on the finish line, curled up in the fetal position, vomiting. So who knows, if the course was maybe a couple meters longer, he may not have made it.
No, that's right. But as you say, like, often in an Ironman, I'm down the track. You've got time to make up in that run. Clearly, you've done some work on your bike to be able to bring that up. Or was it the nature of the course, just due to the fact it was hilly and tough, that made those sort of more stronger, maybe don't have such a great power to weight ratio type number, take them out of play and make them work a little bit more? What was it, do you think? Or is it just the fact that I've worked hard on my bike and I'm in great space there?
No, not at all. I don't think it's I don't think I've made a gain like what that race made me look like I'd made a gain on my bike. It's not like you find an extra 20 watts in my career. Normalized power over 4.5 hours. That just, you don't make jumps like that instantly. So, I mean, we've definitely made big gains on the bike. Like we worked really hard on it. I think the big things for me, we went over and I spent 2 weeks pre-race at altitude just up the road from where the race destination was, and we spent a lot of time on the course. We did a lot of testing on the course with my coach, and I mean, he's got an incredible brain on him, and he broke down. We went over the whole course, and he broke down every segment on the course, and he did lactate tests the whole way through on every segment, and he pretty much figured out that I could ride. The first climb, for example, was 6 minutes 28 if I was holding a certain wattage, and that created this much lactate, and then I would need to back to this wattage on the flat section to be able to recover and absorb that. And then after that 20-minute descent, I could push that climb up to 20 more watts than what I would normally climb. But if it was hot, I'd have to back it back by 10 watts. And he had pretty much created a calculated plan for the whole ride, including every hill and how long each hill was and how much recovery I had after every hill, and on every hill, how much I could push that kind of incline. So, yeah, the way the race unfolded for me was really perfect. I had a great swim. We had a really good group of guys who got off the front, but then I went to the front pretty much straight away in the bike, and tried to kind of set a bit more of a steady pace that I knew that we wanted to set. And I think by that time we all started, having just, it wasn't even, it's not the fact that with a 12-meter draft roll and having a marshal there the whole ride, you don't use the draft at all, but it's just having someone on the front, and that person on the front setting a really controlled, strong pace. And I think that's what makes the difference, is we had 5 guys, and every time the person was on the front, the person was just riding strong, not stupidly strong and not easy. Where I know the guys behind us were in quite a big group, and they've got some Uber bikers there that are going to the front and pushing watts that none of us can achieve. But then they've also got some other guys that were kind of creeping to the front and doing stuff that was just slowing the whole group up. And then all of a sudden they lost 2 minutes kind of to us. So, we just rode really controlled. It was quite a good thing knowing my numbers so well that even in my group, I knew that, I could afford to go whenever, someone did go a little bit higher than what I could afford to do it for so long. And then also if we were riding at that kind of upper limit, I still knew that I could ride that and still pull off an Ironman. So that made a big difference on the bike. And we're definitely amazing that we managed to make some time.
Is that written down anywhere? How do you, is that logged into your Garmin, or how do you manage all those numbers? Or do you just know them because you've done the laps so many times on the course?
I think we've done the laps so many times on the course, or ridden those sections so many times, that we knew pretty well, like the main key sections to that course, and then the general powers on the flat sections, and then how long I had on each recovery or descent to kind of absorb those climbs and stuff. So it's just sort of logged to memory of what we could afford to do.
Yeah, nice. How hard did you push early on in the run? Did you just send it early, or was it actually relatively controlled as Kyle went to the front early on in the run?
Yeah, so that was funny. I would have just sent it. I would have done my usual tactics and been gone. Out of sight, out of mind, because I came off the bike and I felt fantastic. I did my usual. I'd had caffeine just at the top of the climb, so the caffeine had just kicked in, and I had lots of energy. And I was like, right, this is going to be my run, and I'm just going to blow these guys to pieces from the get go. So we went into transition, and you run into the change tent, and I grabbed my gear bag for my run. And the 5 other guys were there, and they're all tipping their bags out, and it was a bit of a mess. And I was like, right, I'll just run all the way to the far end of the tent, and I'll have a space by myself. I'll do a real quick transition, and I'll be gone before they even get their shoes on. So I got to the end, did my transition, and I was ready to run out. And I yelled to the volunteers. I was like, where's the bag drop? Because normally there's a bag drop at the end. And they're like, no, the bags have got to go back on your hook. So I had to run all the way 100 meters back up the tent, put my bag on the hook, and then turn around and run back out. And by that time, obviously Kyle and a couple of other guys had got up the road a little bit from me. So then I decided, right, I better just not try and catch them too quick and settle into a bit of a rhythm. And it was a tough course. Obviously you started, and it was just a long, gradual kind of uphill. So the paces weren't very impressive, but you were working really hard. And then you got into quite a fast kind of downhill. So by that time I caught up with Kyle, and Kyle was moving really well. But I guess I knew if I wanted to win that I had to be running faster than that. So then I got to the front, and obviously the other guys in my group had all dropped back by that time. No one was sort of prepared to run that fast. And it was sort of about the 21K mark that I started getting splits to Christian that he had taken a little bit of time out of me.
Yeah, right. Yeah. How hot did it get on the run? What were the conditions like out there? Like across the board of the day, even like going back to the swim and the bike as well?
Yeah, so very similar temperatures to like Wanaka in summer, but water temperature is only like 15 degrees, so pretty cold. And it had the ability for the air temperature to be like 6 degrees, like it could have been really cold. But lucky enough, it was a nice morning.
Yeah.
And then it heated up. We go up, like Snow Canyon was the last big climb. And by the time we got there was a tailwind, and it was probably about 34 degrees. So getting pretty hot, and that tailwind. So you didn't notice any breeze. There was no kind of cooling.
Yes.
So yeah, that was pretty warm. But it is, it's like 𝗏𝗏𝗧𝗏. It's a very dry heat. And when you're racing in a dry heat like that, it's not too bad. You don't really notice it. Even in the run, there were some dead sections where you're in the trees and that, and it would have been 34, 35 degrees, but you didn't notice it. Not like Kona where it's only 35, 32 degrees kind of thing, but it's 100% humidity. That really cooks you. So yeah, no, the heat was definitely tolerable.
On that, the course that you've talked about and the heat, a PB of 7:54, that's pretty impressive. How does was that right? That's what I've got written down here?
Yeah, you know me and numbers, Rich.
Or PB. How does that compare to what you've done previously?
Well, I didn't actually think it sounded that fast. I mean, I think I haven't done that many races where I've gone over 8 hours. Like Ironman New Zealand, my first 2 times I went over, but then I went under. Kona twice, I've gone under 8 hours. Ironman Cairns, I've gone under 8 hours quite a few times, but I never thought we would go under 8 hours on that course. That was probably the big thing. Like that course is quite a slow course. There's a lot of climbing. The road surfaces were relatively slow, and obviously that run was pretty brutal. So yeah, it was amazing. I just think consistency at the end of the day is the fastest thing in an Ironman, and we're pretty much consistent for 90% of the day, and we went fast.
Nice. I'm going to throw a picture up here. I've put a bunch of asked our community to say, have you got any questions? And I've got a bunch of different questions that come through, but this one was really good. That I'll throw this picture up that you can have a bit of a look at and suss out just what sort of level of hurt that you were going into. So just throw it up there now. So we've got 9 pieces of toast at the end, a very black one at number 1 and a sort of just lightly toasted number 9. At the end of it, when you get into the end of the race, what would you give yourself in terms of how toasted you were?
It's definitely at that 2 kind of point. I remember in a lot of Ironmans I do, you might notice, but on the long straights and the easy parts on the run, I'll actually close my eyes and I'll just run for a while with my eyes closed. And some reason it just kind of relaxes my body. And maybe I'll go for like a minute or so with my eyes closed. Like I'll go quite a long way. And I just think of things that takes my mind off the race and try and shut my eyes and relax and stuff. Well, I thought when I was running down that descent that I'd do it. And I sort of just started shutting my eyes. All of a sudden, I started losing my balance and swerving all over the shop. And I was like, I'm pretty toasted right now. Yeah, I have to. There's not much left in the tank.
No, that's right. On that nutrition, like you were, there was a bit of a drip that went in right at the end. Like once you got across the finish line, it was hot, it was tough. You put your body on the line. How did you go? Sort of trying to, obviously you're looking after yourself on the bike and felt really good on the bike, but how did you go through those aid stations, and what are you taking on board during that run?
I think it probably, for me, it fell back to the bike ride, actually. There's a couple of, they made a really bad job with the aid stations on the bike ride. A lot of the aid stations were on small descents, or you just come off a really fast descent and you're starting to go back up, and the aid station was like right there. So like one of the aid stations I probably hit it at 60, 70K an hour. There's no way I was going to grab a bottle. And also at about the hour and a half mark, we were heading down the highway and we had to go out and do a little right turn, go around some cones and come back to the left. And the policeman pointed us to go straight left. And then when we got there, the marshals were like, no, you got to go right. You were supposed to take that exit lane just back 100 meters. So we decided, me and Kyle, and there was one guy in front of us. So one guy in front of us had to go around this bollard. So me and Kyle just decided to jump this bollard. And during that, I lost my bottle with all my electrolytes in it. So that was there was a bit of a loss. And then, after that, I missed the aid station because we were going too fast. And then the next aid station, I only managed to grab one bottle because the second bottle was too fast. And then the third aid station, I was going too fast and I missed all my fluids. And then the fourth aid station after that, which was probably about 2.5 hours, I managed to get 2 bottles. And then after that, I got lots of fluid on board. And then on the run, I just had to work so hard to try and get a lot of it back on board. Just trying to drink everything I could get, trying to hydrate and take in as many calories as I could by that point of time, because I'd missed a couple of, I guess I'd missed 3 or 4 gels in that kind of session earlier on when I had no fluid. It was probably not the most nutrition smooth event that I'd done.
So what that's telling me is that Braden Currie's still got a bit left in the tank. He could go faster. There's more to give when you're hurting that much and that nutrition's not going quite as well. Yeah. I do think that if I had managed to get those fluids on through those aid stations and I did manage to have all my own electrolytes, it would have made quite a big difference for that run. Whatever. Yeah, good. No, well, yeah, exactly. It is what it is on the day, and you just do your best for it. What sort of, are there any little areas or key areas, or like Kona's sort of a key goal now? Looking forward to that. Obviously, there's a bit of recovery first of all, and just getting your feet back on the ground. But what's next? What's the sort of things that you are thinking of in terms of, right, I'm going to tweak that, I'm going to improve this for you going forward?
Yeah, I think, so Kona's the next, obviously, big goal. We're still trying to toss up whether I do Ironman Cairns. I'll go to Slovakia and race the Collins Cup later in the year in September, and then I'll do my last training block in Maui for Kona. So, a few different things that are swirling around in the head is whether I race Ironman Cairns in 4 weeks' time. It would mean that I did 3 Ironmans this year, which is normal, really. 3 is fine. 4 or 5 is definitely a big push. But, I think you definitely weigh things up. It's still money at the end of the day. We still make money from racing, and that's how we... I think probably in the last few years, I've learned more and more that I don't want to travel solo either. I don't really enjoy it anymore. I don't like spending... lots of time away from the kids and stuff, and the kids don't actually enjoy spending time away from me. So financially it becomes a bit more challenging to fly them all to Europe and spend 2 months in Europe and things like that too. So we'll weigh up racing Cairns. Little tricks and tips. Altitude worked really well for me. I know in the past it's worked really well. So is there a way that we can work an altitude camp in pre-Kona somewhere? So does that mean going to Europe and doing an altitude camp 6 weeks out from Kona and then doing a heat camp in Maui? Maybe. Course specificity. I think we nailed it on the bike, but I don't think we nailed it on the run. So working out, probably deep diving a little bit more into how to run that Kona run. It's a little less undulating than what it was in St. George. So, that's one that we could definitely try and manage the paces better, and have more, research going into what I need to do to run a fast run there. So that's probably it. A little bit of potential altitude, trying to use that again. Course specificity, what kind of load we do race wise into it.
Yeah, good job. Awesome. Well done, Braden. Hey, thanks so much for taking time to join us and share your thoughts and things. Lots of people were cheering on as you're aware of. Love what you do. Soak it up, enjoy this sort of moment, and look forward to cheering on and again sometime soon.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Rach. Thanks for your time and your support.
Yeah, good stuff. Take care. Talk soon.
Cool. See you, mate.
Hey, Braden. Just like that.
Wow.
That's pretty good insight. Cool to be able to chat to Sally for a start, wasn't it? And then also get a sort of feel of what she does and how the Currie team kind of work together, and then get an idea from Braden around the race, how it unfolded, and the fact that he lost all his nutrition for how many aid stations on that bike. It'd be pretty impressive. So yeah, what an athlete and what a performance, and cool to be able to cheer him on.
Absolutely. When he was telling those anecdotes of losing the hydration award, my heart just went, no, no, no.
And another one. Oh, that's not good, but just to start the fight is impressive, isn't it? And to go and have a crack at it, and to get himself back on track as best as he could.
Yeah, and it sounds like a big year shaping up, which is exciting. Can't wait to follow along and, you know, see what happens potentially in Cairns, but also in Kona.
Yeah, nice work. We've got Kushla waiting the right wing. Shall we see if she's available?
Hello.
Nice work. How you doing, Kushla?
Oh, I almost didn't make it, but I'm here.
Yeah, good stuff. We just want to have a quick chat with you. We're talking to Braden around racing in the heat and how do you manage that sort of thing. So I guess I just wanted to grab you online just to go, okay, how do you actually prepare yourself for those sort of environments? I guess beforehand, during, and then what do you do to recover from that? What are your thoughts there? Anything you can share?
Any athlete that's going from like a cooler environment like New Zealand over to somewhere where it's incredibly hot and or muggy, you need to prepare for that, or else you're going to know about it. And actually have a serious health risk as well with heat-related illness. So generally before an athlete competes in hot environments, there will be a purposeful time of heat acclimation or acclimatization. They're both similar but different. Acclimatization is basically where you are in the environment, you know, seasonal changes, all of you live there. Acclimation is more like purposeful training in artificial or the actual conditions to basically initiate profuse sweating and get your core temperature up to better prepare for actually competing in those conditions.
Yeah, and your body does that, doesn't it? We can physiologically adapt to sweat more, to sweat earlier, to have our sweat more dilute as our body adapts to those conditions, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's interesting. Our body gets better at how much sodium chloride it loses, but overall, because we get better at sweating and maybe sweating more, the overall concentration doesn't necessarily change that much, which is quite interesting. But what we do find as well is that adaptations include your core temperature at rest reduces a little bit. So there's usually a greater variation of how much your body temperature can fluctuate.
Okay, yeah. And Braden talked about that. He talked about an altitude camp, but he'd also do a heat camp as well. And clearly that's just in terms of getting some of those physiological adaptations, also around blood and plasma and things. Is that something that happens as well?
Yeah, when we train at altitude, there's a hormone called erythropoietin, which helps produce our red blood cells. And many people will know Lance Armstrong, you know, famous cyclist. That's what they use basically as doping, because it helps you produce more red blood cells, which ultimately improves your oxygen carrying capacity. But as an athlete, if you're training at altitude and doing those altitude camps, you're improving your aerobic capacity more. So when you come back to something like sea level, then you're just like even better for it.
That's right. But the heat camp as well that he was talking about, which is all those adaptations that you were just mentioning, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, cool. Nice. Any other things that you're doing pre getting yourself organized, or is it really just going back to actually preparing and planning and knowing that you can take that fluid on board and there's no gut upsets that are going to happen on my event day?
Yeah, well, it's always training as you would race, but in terms of, I guess, that physiological adaptation, it's 7 to 10 days before the event that you want to be purposely going out on consecutive days at a vigorous kind of intensity to get those adaptations. And for people who, you know, you might be living in New Zealand and literally arriving at your competition the day before, that's not really feasible. So that's where you have to rely on artificial environments, whether that's like a heat chamber, saunas, spa baths, all those kind of things to try and keep your core temperature elevated.
Even Zwifting here, like there's a fair bit of sweat coming off that. I mean, even that, working in that, like you get pretty hot, maybe turn the fan off kind of thing. Let's just actually deal and cope with that. That's another effectively heat chamber almost, isn't it?
Yeah, somewhat.
Somewhat, yeah, exactly. But I mean, that's something that we can do from a performance element, even if we're not competing in a hot environment. Those adaptations that we create out of doing that can really give ourselves a little bit of a boost in regards to our performance, which I think is also really key, isn't it?
Definitely. Yeah, it might help, you know, your body be a little bit more efficient with its sweat rate or whatever that may be. So it all helps. It's all training, isn't it? It's what we want to get out of it.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. That's right. And any tips for sort of during Any other sort of things other than sort of get your sports drink done and make sure you have plenty of it?
So in terms of cooling, this is really interesting. And the best way to do it is actually dousing yourself in fluid.
Right, okay.
So that's your most efficient way to help cool your core temperature, and obviously aiming for the torso rather than the head, because you're going to get more surface area with the torso.
Yeah.
And it's basically free sweat. So physiologically, you don't have to produce as much sweat because you're getting the evaporative effect of that fluid hitting your skin and helping cool you down.
Okay,
so
yeah.
You could argue that the water's not going in your mouth, you're not helping your hydration. So you do want to still get some in the body, obviously, with the sports drink, but you're technically indirectly helping your hydration because you're helping your body not produce as much sweat and cool yourself down. So that's why like Tara, where you see them, I think they have sponges that they can pour over themselves and things.
Yeah, and ice under the hat's also one as well, isn't it? Because you kind of through that, and then, but also the cooling from your head. A lot of heat comes out of your head, doesn't it? So if we can cool that down, that makes a big difference too.
Yeah, and like in the tennis matches and things, you'll see them sit in their breaks and they'll have the ice towels around their neck and even the wet towels on their lap. And again, that helps. Like that might even help short and sharp drop their body temperature by 0.5 degree, which can be huge in those sort of competitive environments. Yeah,
nice, good stuff. And what about as a post-recovery thing that we should be doing just to try and look after ourselves as best as we can? I think there was as mentioned, Braden had a drip go in pretty quickly as he'd finished.
Yeah, I guess if you're not that great and you're pretty dehydrated, you might need something like intravenous drip. But yeah,
probably not something that you'd recommend to sort of have in your first aid kit, is it? Like just that'll line this up.
Well, if you know how to set that up yourself, maybe, but hopefully you're not at that end of needing like medical help. But generally, if you've managed to do well and you haven't had heat-related illness, then you should be able to tolerate fluids okay afterwards. So sports drinks best because it helps rehydrate you most rapidly, get some electrolytes and get some refueling going on. But if you've had a bit of heat-related stress, you may find that your gut's just not going to work. And that's because there's basically like that ischemic effect of our bowel becomes actually quite injured when we get in really hot environments like that. And that may impact how well we tolerate fluids after.
Ischemic effect, meaning there's not the blood flow going to our gut the same, so we can't digest it quite the same?
Yeah, and it basically starts to literally damage our gut because the blood flow is not getting there.
Right, okay, because it's just going to my extremities to try and cool me down. Is what's happening. Right, good. Of course, I always learn something when I talk to you, and that's a couple of things actually. I like that sweat thing that you talked about. Actually, just get yourself wet because that's free cooling. That's really cool. And then also, I mean, that recovery thing, as you just mentioned. Is there anything that we can do for that? I guess it's just time and relaxing and put your feet up and cool yourself down as quickly as you can in regards to kind of that gut damage.
Yeah, I'm so sorry as well. My dog's just literally come in and started to eat his biscuits in the background. Very distracting. I'm really sorry if you can hear it. Yeah, I'm trying to still concentrate. Yeah, I think like even during 𝗕𝗏𝗆, I found, because that was an extremely hot day, because the aid stations are quite close together towards the end of that race, I was basically topping up one with my sports drink for consumption and had my other one just with water. And then like sporadically every few K, I was pouring the water over myself to help cool me down as well, which was really effective. Yeah.
Awesome. Well done. That's great. Fantastic, Kusha. Hey, thanks so much for taking time to join us. So you've got lots on at the moment, lots of sort of clients and things getting organised, getting their baseline nutrition sorted, and then also that comes through down the track to getting organised for your event. But a great time to kind of look after yourself and get those ducks in a row so then you can perform down the track.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nice work. Hey, love your work. Keep up the good work, and thanks for sharing some good learning.
Cool. Thanks, guys.
Awesome. Okay, take care. Cheers, thanks. Good stuff. I didn't hear too many dog biscuits being eaten, but that's good. I also just had the guys come and pick up our gazebo for the Oxford Odyssey that's on tomorrow, which you're coming up to as well, Jess.
Yep. Heading up later today, and can't wait to see everyone tomorrow and get amongst it.
Yeah, good. And this is tomorrow, but this is going to be podcast is going to be released on Oxford, the Oxford Odyssey Day. So we're a day behind pre-recording.
Yes.
Organised. Hey, I just just want to have a quick chat to you. We're talking triathlon. Swimming is your go-to, and that's the thing that you're sort of right into. Hey, we're wintered currently. We're thinking about this event maybe. I'm either rubbish at swimming, or I want to try and develop my swimming so I'm not so far at the back, or I'll maybe get towards the front. What are some things that people can be thinking about in regards to their swimming for their triathlons at the moment?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I think about swimming for triathlon, it is the discipline that kind of sets the scene for the race to come. So regardless of whether you're a beginner to an advanced, how you start that race is really going to, set the scene for how you go for the rest of the day. Winter is a perfect time to build your swim base endurance. For a beginner, it's really amazing to figure out where you need to improve. So either getting a technique session with a coach, and figuring out what you need to improve on skill-wise. And so the big three there are body position, hip rotation, and underwater propulsion. So those are the three things to work on as a base level if you're a beginner. Also for a beginner, it's really good to just get some consistency and confidence in the water. For a lot of people, the swim leg, it's that anxiety-inducing, start of the race that kind of gets the nerves up for a lot of people. So getting your confidence and feeling good in the water is really going to help, and set you straight for the spring season. For an intermediate, for that intermediate advanced, it's working on your technique and hitting specific paces. So it's putting in, 2 to 3 days a week at the pool over winter to improve your technique and get consistent at hitting your goal paces. And so we think of pros. Pros in wintertime are still spending about 3 days a week at the pool, feeling good in the water and not losing that base endurance. So that's a couple of things that come to mind. And also the important bit about swimming over winter is that it also builds your cardiovascular endurance, which translates across also to your cycling and running capabilities.
Yeah, for sure. And right at the top, you said, see a coach, catch up with somebody that can look at your technique and give you some feedback. And no matter what level we are, I mean, we can always improve a little bit. There's always, because it's such a technical sport, isn't it? To be able to swim well. And as you said, like the better I do, the more I can relax, the more I can enjoy it, the more that I can set myself up for a good day ahead. But ultimately that plus that consistency and practicing good technique is super key.
Absolutely. And it may not be a whole list of things that you need to improve on. It could be your breathing. It could be your hand entry, that if you practice consistently over the winter, you'll see significant progress when you're out in the water in spring. Just working on a couple of little things really sets you up well when you come into open water scenario and you need a whole new level of confidence.
That's right.
Yeah.
Good stuff, Jess. Nice work. Now, as I mentioned, like your swimming is kind of your go-to. The only issue with swimming is that you don't get a whole lot of vertical meters in swimming. Like actually, it's generally pretty flat. So, with that said, have you got a number for us? Have you got any vertical meters under the belt since?
I'm a bit short on my vertical meters so far, Richard. I'm going to be honest.
Okay.
But look, it's the 13th of May as of today, and I can have a good comeback. We'll see.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, good. Okay, well, we'll look forward to hearing how that comeback goes. There's been some really good performances. Darren de Groot's been mixing it up. He's, beyond 10,000, I think, at the moment, halfway through, which is crazy. And there's a whole bunch of people that are really making the most of that. It's been really cool. Lucy and Trevor Hone, bit of a shout out to them. They've been getting amongst it as well. There's heaps are going on. So vertical meters are awesome because they're hard for a start, and there's just nowhere to hide, place to get strong and get fit. So great wee challenge. See how many vertical meters you can do by the end of May. So we'll look forward to hearing how you get on there, Jess.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, good stuff. And on mine, like I'd have to say that I've probably made the best start to May that I have for a number of years.
Really?
About 4,000 so far, which is outperforming.
Is it on the bike or on foot?
There was 2,000 on foot, but that was on our Adventure Day a few weeks back. So that was sort of a planned mission to get a few and book them in. Yeah. So, mixing it up a little bit.
fantastic.
Excellent.
Cool.
So a big thanks to Braden, Sally for joining us and sharing their World Champs Utah experience. Also 𝗂𝗍𝗆 for jumping in, and of course you, Jess, for your insights and being involved in helping push the buttons.
Cool. No worries. It was great.
Good stuff. Okay, take care. You have a great time at Mount Oxford. Go and have some fun. And if you're doing that event, make sure you have a shout out to Jess and go and say good day. And look after yourself, team. Enjoy your adventures and enjoy your training, and we'll catch up soon.
Cheers. Bye.
Good job.